Good evening and welcome to Psych Incubator. I'm Jeffrey Magnavita, and I am pleased to have Michael Alpert as our guest tonight. Susan Johnson was unable to attend. She'll be back presenting with us in May. So this is Eminent Psychotherapists Revealed, and we have a special treat for you tonight. Michael Alpert, who is also one of our co-hosts of the series, is going to be doing a interview with Todd Thompson, who's going to play a difficult patient. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael to tell everyone what the format's going to look like and how we're going to proceed. So thank you all for joining us and hope you enjoy our presentation this evening.
Okay, great. We're going to first talk a little bit about what this model is. And the only reason for describing it, it's called self-connection psychotherapy, is so that you can orient yourself as you watch what's happening. As Jeffrey already said, I'm going to conduct an interview with Todd Thomas. Todd and Rusty, Doctors Thomas and Feldman, and I have been working together for countless years, trying to refine therapeutic techniques and bouncing from everything from AET up to the present. Actually, Dr. Feldman is the second oldest AET shrink. So just so you understand how far back we go. Now, I'm going to describe this and then give you highlights that you're going to look for. And then we'll have an interview. And the interview is going to be with a patient who is being played by Dr. Thomas. It's going to be made up of real elements of the patient, but they're all going to be disguised. This is recorded, so that all you know about that. And I'm going to try to help this person. I'm not sure if I know anything about this person or not, because I don't know whether we created something new or I've seen elements of this before, but I'm going to try to demonstrate how I would proceed with this person. Now, even if it's something that Todd has done with me before to some degree, it'll be different this time. This is a constantly evolving model where we keep tweaking it. And one of the interesting things that we're going to be able to show you is just how the self-connection occurs, why it's important, and what it does. And it has a lot of links to everyday problems that your patients bring in, whether they're symptoms like anxiety or depression, or whether they have to do with traumas. That's a lot of the waterfront. So this is a very helpful set of techniques that can be melded with any psychotherapy that you want. Hopefully they will provide some frisant or zest to things. It's an active therapy. I talk a lot, and I think I'll explain why I think that's important. I also try to be transparent and tell him, the patient, exactly what goes on with me. I watch myself and I watch him, and I try to get him to watch himself. He doesn't have to watch me so much, but it's important that he watches his own face. Watching your own face is very important. As a lady said to me, I was at home with my 4.5-year-old, and he said to me, "Mom, you look sad." And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "But you look sad." She said, "Well, what do you mean? Your face looks sad." And she said, "Oh, it's not sad." He says, "Mom, I can see your face. You can't see it." And that's the issue. We don't see our own face. We don't see what we're showing to the world. So it's in this model, you get your patient or client to utilize all that information on his or her, or whatever the gender is, own face. And that is a critical aspect of it. Now, the thing that I try to do is make the person I'm treating as comfortable as possible. I try to harvest all the low-hanging fruit. I'm not, if something is presented that I think is useful, I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to try digging elsewhere. I'll do a little bit of an overview at first of asking about the symptoms, the problems, how long they've been there, whether this is recurrent or not, and what kind of treatment they've had. And Todd may just offer some of this up as he talks. I might have to ask him. I may forget to ask part of it. Feel free to ask those questions or anything else you want to ask at any time so that we can make sure that everybody's on the same page. Now, the symptoms that people have are really telling us a great deal. Symptoms are kind of hypertrophied defenses. Defenses run amok. So instead of being anxious a little bit because you have to give a talk, you begin to panic, or you begin to, run away or hide or get mute. So that's the anxiety, instead of being used, is becoming a problem. And the same thing happens with depression, where people something has upset them tremendously. It may be a loss, in which case they just don't know what to do with this loss. And in this case, we spend a lot of time looking at the physical sensations associated with the loss or any other symptom. And similarly, if you are presenting with a lot of angry feelings, you'll find that I don't jump at the anger. I'm really interested usually in what's underneath the anger. Anger is legitimate in many circumstances. When there's danger and you have to protect yourself, you have to fight. Or if you're involved in contact sports and you have to rev up for it. But anger actually is not as primitive a feeling as some of the others, like anxiety and the pain of loss, or the love of having somebody love you. And so I'm much more interested in those primitive ones because those are the ones that have the biggest payoff. Even if there is anger, we deal with it, and then we're going to go to what's underneath. Because usually the anger is because they're not feeling safe or comfortable in some reason. So as we go through this, the patient may or may not begin to report certain feelings as they're talking, certain things that they're not used to having. And I'll ask them, have you felt this way before? When was it? When did you first feel this way? And what I'm looking for are the roots of the problem. And when they talk about those roots, I'm very interested in what happened and whether those things got resolved in a useful way or not, or whether they're really the roots of today's problems. So as we're talking about that, I try to set up a dialogue between them now and them back early in these early years when they were first traumatized. Now, it may be that they were bullied incessantly at school or at home, or they were beaten, or they were abused in some other way, or that they lost key figures who either left or died or just became unavailable. And those feelings, which are causing so many behavioral things to happen to them, really didn't get managed by those taking care of them in a way that helped them to heal at that time. So there's this opportunity for the person I'm treating to actually say how they would care for that child who is hurting so much, who's so scared, who's so angry, who's so desperate. And hopefully they will say something that resonates with the child. Now, it's small things. It's not you should do this or that. It's simply that they display some caring for the child, a sense of compassion. And that is usually all that child needed, was this safe, compassionate person. And that then allows them to feel wonderful together. You know, when you know the wonder of having a loved one, you know the wonder of having, whether it's a spouse or a child, could be a parent, could be a sibling, could be a pet. And you know how wonderful that feeling is, and where you feel it, this expansive pressure in your chest. And when that begins to happen, the symptoms begin to diminish. Now, it's not always rosy. Often there's difficult steps, but that's kind of the model. As I said before, this person, whoever it is that Dr. Thomas is going to portray, is not a real person, because it's made up of an amalgam of parts, pieces that kind of he put together in a new way. And he's going to best kind of present with how this person would behave and why the person is difficult. Because this is supposed to be a difficult person that therapists struggle with. There have been a lot of hints for him suggesting that he threatened to murder me, or thank you very much, or that he essentially be so manic that I can't possibly deal with him. But whatever it is, I'll do my best, and we'll talk about what it's like for me and for him as we do that. Now we're going to, times have the faculty here today break in and ask for clarification. They can ask that of the patient or the therapist. And hopefully that got your questions answered. Later at the end, you'll have a chance for other questions. And we will try to leave room for everyone to ask.
So feel free to send those in on the chat to us, and I will ask them if you have questions you want our interviewee to answer. Thank you.
Okay. So Todd, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you the usual question, what brings you here today?
In a very rough spot, Doctor. I have my company has spent a lot of money to send me on a extended special training year, and I worked very hard to get the honor of being in this position. It's extremely overwhelming, and I feel very stuck. My wife, I don't know what's going on with her, but she's not very supportive or helpful. I'm having tremendous trouble sleeping. I have never thought before about quitting any job or schooling that I've had. I don't know if I can do this, and I really need to have some tools to cope with this. This situation is bad for me. With the limited sleep, I under the best circumstances, it's going to be a struggle for me to deal with this training. But with no sleep, my thinking is awful. My concentration is poor. It's people can tell that I'm not doing well. So it's awful.
Okay. Now, have you thought in any way about how you could get away from this, or if you had thoughts of ending it to escape?
Yes, I have been thinking about pursuing a different career. I don't know what my future would be with the company. I worked very hard to get myself in this position. They've invested a substantial amount of money and time on this, I don't know what future I'd have with my current company and my current career if I gave up on this.
Okay. Now, has something like this ever happened before?
Nowhere near. I played competitive soccer, and so there were programs that I went to where I had to work very hard, where I was afraid I would let my parents down, or I wouldn't get a scholarship to college. There was pressure, but I never felt like I didn't have. I'm not sure I can complete this program that I'm in.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what this is like for you. It's extremely painful to watch you this way. The pain comes through in your face. I'm wondering what it's like for you to be in this pickle.
I several times in the last couple of weeks I vomited before I went to work. It's just my anxiety is sky high.
Are you losing weight?
I probably have lost weight. I'm certainly losing sleep. That I lost a lot of.
Yeah. So when you are feeling this horrible bind, because here you are, you liked working here, you liked these people, and they gave you this opportunity. And what point did it begin to go south? What happened?
There's it's very competitive. There's a huge huge quantity of information that I'm expected to digest. Also the thought of once I complete the training, I'm going to be working 70 hours a week. That doesn't help, but to think of myself just I don't know if it's worth any amount of money to work those kind of hours under that much pressure, feeling like I'm starting to feel like I'm not cut out for it.
Yeah. So you'd like to escape?
Yes, I would. I can't. That's not an option now. Doctor, I really need I need I need a way to deal with this.
Okay. So I need to know a little bit more about you feeling obviously so anxious that can't sleep. What is it physically like? Where do you feel it in your body as you talk about these things? You feel this tension?
A lot of tightness and like an acidic feeling in my stomach.
Where is that feeling? If you could kind of, this bone down the middle here, or the breastbone, or the sternum. Yeah. Is it below that or under that?
Yeah, like I have. It's like the feeling worse than butterflies in your stomach. It's more intense than that.
And what is that like? Is it a pressure or burning, a stabbing?
There's some burning. I think the worst part is that I have to interact with other people in the training program. I think they can see the sort of frozen, fearful look on my face. I'm thinking they're wondering if I belong in this setting.
Do you see it on your face right now? That frozen, fearful, agitated look that they can see?
It's just my face. It's
what do you see in your face if you look at your eyes right now?
Well, it looks serious. I'm not happy.
But you're not happy. They can see you're not happy. You look serious. But you said that they can see that you're almost frozen. Does your
Well,
face feel
it's
frozen?
not now. It's not. You know, it's much worse. I'm not as uncomfortable now as I am there.
Really? Really? This is easier.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. It's a
Wow.
hell of a lot easier.
That's both amazing and because people are often very uncomfortable when they see someone for help, especially the first time. And so, but this is so far this has made you feel calmer, if anything.
I wouldn't say I was calm, but you know, I don't. I imagine often when I'm interacting with my instructors, I'm probably pale sometimes, and I don't see that now. I don't look pale now, or um, I'm not jumbling my words, or you know,
I'm going to interrupt the process
sounding.
just for a second to talk to everyone who's here and to give them a sense, and for you too to get a sense of what's going on with me as you talk about this. The pressure, the kind of urgency comes through, and it makes me feel like I want to do something.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Michael. I was thinking that this is where I think most people with a prescription pad say, we can handle this. Here, take this. And I think it makes it, I think the anxiety in the prescriber is going to, and any prescriber is going to pull their pad out and
Sure.
give an anxiolytic right now because it's so painful for you and for us to see this person in distress. And yet, I don't see your prescription pad getting pulled out yet.
Well, given that I wouldn't be doing this interview planning to prescribe, but the 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 it's almost like I want to jump at solutions, jump
Yeah,
at
yeah,
making interpretations, jump at trying something rather
yes.
than
So is
let
that the
giving.
counter? Is that counter transfer? Is that what we call counter transference? That the transference of make me better fast, doctor, is actually being received in you.
Well, I think that I hear those words and I hear how desperate he is, but I also it hurts to talk to him about this. He's clearly in pain.
Yeah,
This is no fun, and it's feeling it is painful, and yet at the same time, and this is the paradox, feeling that I share it with him makes me tear up a little bit and feel closer to him.
Michael, I wonder what you're going to do. What are you thinking about? How are you going to use those feelings
Well, I just
to,
did it.
to
I
help?
just said this now, and now the next thing now, after I tell him what is going on with me, I want to see how that's received. He may push it away. I don't know.
let's go back to the process.
But it may make him
Let's go
feel
right back
differently.
to the
So
process.
how do you feel when you hear how I'm feeling about what you're telling me?
Well, look, I'm glad you're getting some of the stress I'm in, and but I need some tools. I gotta have something I can work. You know,
That's what the goal is to give you some tools, but not to jump at it, not to lunge. We have to really come at it together. So,
all right.
and in a way, what I'm going to try to do is get you to look at these things you're feeling more and to see what happens as you feel these things. Because that's going to give us what we need to figure out just what the right tool would be. Does that make any sense, or just sounds like a bunch of gibberish?
All right. You know, I'm desperate. I'll try things. You can tell. I've told you what I feel. It's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And something that will help me is that if um, one of the faculty can tell me what the time looks like, because I will know when to speed up.
We're good. We're good. I think the process is
Good.
worth continuing.
Okay. So now, look, you you're feeling desperate. You know, that's a
Yes.
strong, strong word. Desperation is, what am I gonna do? This is the, I don't know what to do. You know, it's a horrible feeling, and it sounds like it's very intense, and there's no one there. It sounds like your wife is somehow absent at this moment.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, but she's going, I guess she's going through some of her own stuff. And so she's having trouble being patient with me. She seems like, she's taking it personal that I'm not sleeping well,
Sure.
things like this. She's not that helpful. I don't think she's not malicious or anything, but she's just not, she doesn't really get it, what's going on.
Well, it's scary for a spouse. They don't know what to do, and they count on you. And so she may have had an experience like this with a parent or someone who kind of went off their tracks, and she just didn't know what to do. Or it could be a sibling. She just doesn't want to see that happen again. So it could be,
Maybe.
it makes perfectly good sense. That
I don't know.
but it doesn't help you. It just makes you feel
No,
more
it isn't
alone.
helping at all. It is not helping at all.
Okay. So you have tremendous loneliness now, isolation. Everyone is going to reject you. She's going to reject you. What's going to be left then when you're all alone?
I don't want to go there.
What would it be like to right now, just losing them this much? She's not available. The people you work with, you can't tell because they're going to be upset. They may not want you around. What's it like to feel so alone?
I'm scared shitless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Yeah.
I'm fucking scared.
Yeah. 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 Do you cry about this sometimes?
I do. I have. But doctor, I need some techniques.
Okay.
I'm gonna go face this shit all day long tomorrow.
All day long, another day. So it's torture too, because it's just day after day, desperate and tortured and alone.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
that's right.
So, and I'm going to ask you a question I asked you before. Was there any time before this that you felt either all alone or desperate or tortured?
I think I was a sophomore, and I was expecting to get a lot of scholarship opportunities, and I wasn't getting along with a coach, and that was, my parents were upset. I started to second guess everything I did on the field. I started to play poorly in comparison to what I was capable of. But it wasn't this bad.
It was not
I don't remember it being this bad.
So, what's it like when you think of the way it was back then, when you were a sophomore, and you see how difficult it was for?
It was terrible. But doctor, what am I going to do now?
Well, we're beginning to do it. We're beginning to do it. So I'm going to ask you a little more about.
This is very painful.
To talk about this. What happened?
Yes.
Good. Good. Okay. So is this pain the same as the pain you've been describing, or is it different?
It's similar.
Similar. Okay. So this may be one of the roots of this problem, and it's worth us taking a few minutes to examine it. Because here's this kid. How old were you?
You know, my soccer game improved. I got a scholarship. This is different, Doctor.
So can I interrupt and just make a comment? So this is very powerful and very true to clinical experience in life, and it's pretty amazing.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering for both of you, like when a patient is asking for a tool,
Mhm.
and would there ever be a time when you would say, let's see what kind of tools might help you get through tomorrow, that we might use to help you get through? Because in a way, I also wanted to ask about like informed consent. Like if he's coming for a tool, whatever that is, some kind of, and I guess what I want to know more about is what the tool is like. Is that like a strategy? Is that, what is he hoping the tool will do for him? So
Sure.
would you ever go with that first and then?
I used to do more of that, but he's told me that this is ongoing, that this isn't actually a one-day thing. It's not
Right.
about the leap.
I think I could see where that is on the track, but it doesn't seem like until his anxiety gets down, he's going to be able to even go back there to me.
Well, we're going to. He may not. He may not. Because, and it's a good point. But certainly you can do things. But I might suggest things like that.
Well, what would happen if you pursued the strategy of, so let's talk about what kind of tools you think might, what do you think would happen if you went down that avenue?
Let's find out. Todd, can you answer the question? When he says, what kind of tools are you looking for? What do you think might help?
I don't know. I would just hoping there was something. Maybe there's not a tool that makes this like all different.
Has anything ever made it better?
Yeah. Well, you know, when my wife hasn't been so difficult, I felt less alone with it. A couple of weeks ago, I shared some of this with my boss. I really appreciated he reassured me that you know, they had complete faith in me. They didn't expect me to finish at the head of my training class or anything. I just had to get through it.
Mhm.
And
So how did you feel when he told you?
I felt good. I never been part of a curriculum where I wasn't planning to be the head of the class, though. So that
Do you notice how your voice changed when you said it felt good?
yeah,
What's
I
that
did.
like? That change in your voice and that feeling good?
Yeah, I haven't had much support from anybody really.
So you have support from this guy though, and it felt good.
So can I just jump in again? So do you, this process is so interesting. It seems to me as an observer that just acknowledging he needs a tool and he thought about someone who helped him, just, Todd, you look like
that was a good thing.
Like you got something you were asking for, like at least a tool, a strategy.
Yeah, I think I've had a number of clients use it. It's sort of a fig leaf for the underlying emotions, and that's how I conceived of it.
Well, I think it is, but I guess that I always feel
Try
like,
to stay in character of the patient. Don't answer it as a question. Okay.
Me?
No, Todd.
Oh, Todd.
Don't,
Okay.
because otherwise we're going to have a different
Okay.
discussion.
So, but
You've got the hard job here.
it sounds like the doc when he started to talk to you about, started to listen to you about wanting a tool, and he actually highlighted and reflected that back, just thinking about there have been people that have helped you and served to reduce your distress. Seems to have, just the thought of that seems to have reduced your distress.
Yeah, reminded me of other occasions where I did benefit from
Yes, yeah.
such
And
support.
so maybe when you're talking about looking for a tool or a strategy, maybe we're on to something here. Like something that has worked in the past for you to help you get through, because it sounds to me like you want to get through tomorrow.
I definitely want to get through tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think the doc's going to help you with some tools to get through to tomorrow.
So, I mean, one thing that's happening for me as I listen is that, I mean, this is clearly a psychodynamic issue. The patient's already identified a time in high school where he has felt this way. And yeah, in his voice, we hear like a victim's voice versus like a voice of empowerment. And I would love to see how we can take like what happened in the past, what was missing, what's happening today, what isn't missing, what does he have today? Like he has this friend, he has you, Michael, as a psychiatrist. I mean, obviously he's much more resourced than he was in the past. And I think some sort of acknowledgement that, as Jeffrey was pointing out, he already has some tools. And what would it be like for him to acknowledge, like, these are the tools that I have, and those are different than when I had it in my adolescence. And what am I going to do with these tools now? And how can I build upon those tools?
These are good points that, ways of going about this, and one can use things like this. I think, it's perfectly reasonable to again say, well, if you want to ask one or two questions that would frame that and see what happened. Because see, what I'm hearing from this man is that he kind of pushes away when you try to get him to look at things in a more positive way. And I don't know if he's going to push away if you frame it, and so
Isn't it important
right
for
way.
us to see that? I mean, if he is pushing these things away, like it would help him to be aware of that and to choose. Does he
Yeah,
want to remain in a victim space, or does he want to fight?
Do you want to ask him, or should I ask
Yeah,
him?
look, why don't we do this? Let it play out. I think a lot of your concerns will be addressed as it unfolds.
Okay.
The patient has said, "Let the fire."
Okay. No, so look, you clearly are in a lot better. I'm going to follow the lead there just to see how it plays, because you have to always try lots of things, and you kind of wait for your openings, and you choose them. Now, right now, there's an opening with this boy, and there's an opening with this boy, his supervisor. The supervisor was there for him, but he's somehow. So, what's keeping you from going back to him and talking to him more? Because he seems to want to help you.
He does, he does, but his idea of helping me is I just get through this, and then I accept being just another person who made it through. I'm not going to excel, and okay, maybe I can get through it, but I don't want to finish the lower half of my class.
So even if he says that's okay, you don't want that to happen.
So it's okay for him, but I wasn't raised that way.
You were not. You were raised to how?
I want to be in the gold medal.
And what would
Position.
happen if you didn't get the gold medal? What would happen at home with your family?
That's I don't want to be just another guy.
What would happen if it's your family if they saw you as not getting the gold medal? Did that ever happen?
It did.
Mm-hmm.
It did.
It did. What happened?
So they were good. I mean, I could see the disappointment in their face. I felt tremendous disappointment in my own heart.
Mm-hmm. In your own heart. And what did they say when they saw how upset you were?
They tried to make me feel better, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they didn't kick me when I was down.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, what if you said something to Todd about, how tough he is on himself?
So sure. So you're pretty tough on yourself.
I guess it does sound. When I say it, it sounds a little dramatic.
What sounds dramatic?
Not going to be the end. I mean, I'm never going to get any gold medals now, and I guess I should be old enough to stop focusing on coming in first place. When that's not the only
But you're still
lifestyle.
tough. But you're still tough on yourself.
I think so. I think I'm making this dramatic.
Yeah. So let's look. What makes you say you're making it dramatic? Because you're struggling to maintain control, to not be needy, to kind of avoid asking for anything. You're, if anything, avoiding the spotlight right now.
I think it's a good opportunity. I don't want to be an average student, but better. It's a hell of a lot better than being a dropout.
Sure. Well, I'd like you to think now. Since that time, you've been viewing yourself as damaged goods.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that boy never got over it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I didn't. I wanted a scholarship to Harvard. I didn't even get considered. I learned to live with that.
Can we do about a couple more minutes and bring it to a close so we can interact?
Sure. We're just getting to the best part. So,
okay. You need a little more time, or?
Yeah. We're good. Well, okay. So you didn't achieve what you'd hoped to achieve the kid didn't get there. So when you look at this kid who felt so that he failed everyone, failed his family, failed himself, just felt the air come out of him. Can you see him that way? Is that how he is?
Yeah, he looks pretty broken.
So what does that make you feel to see him so broken? To see him so deflated, so down.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad.
See. And very sad for him.
Yeah.
And what's it like for him to see how sad you are for him?
It's hard.
Hmm?
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard to see it.
I have so many different feelings and thoughts about it.
Well, he's clearly concerned about you. He's very sad seeing you suffer this way. What's that like for him to see just how much you suffer?
Yeah. I got to tell you, a good thought I have. I think my boss was right. I don't have to. It's stupid. I don't have to be at the top of the class. I invested a ton of money. I can get through I think I can get through this program. I don't have to
But
be.
I want you to stay with this thought that this kid has been struggling so hard, and you hear him saying now, maybe I can get through things. What's it like for him to have you there saying, I see how much pain you've been in and how hard you've struggled?
I wish, that was something that I think my parents tolerated my lack of excellence. I didn't.
But when you felt they tolerated it, that must have hurt additionally. Feeling tolerated makes it all worse. So that may be part of the reason why you're so hard on yourself, because you failed their expectations. But let's stay with you now, right now, looking at this kid who's hurting so bad and feels tolerated. People will say, okay, he's C-, but that's okay. We tolerate him.
So we're gonna have to kind of wrap it up so we have a little time to talk. Can we just
Sure.
answer that?
We'll wrap it up in just a second. Okay. Just want to see what the answer is, and then we'll stop. So, because you're kind of nibbling at this. You're nibbling at what it's like for this kid to have you there seeing his pain, to see how much he hurts with you.
I want to say to him that it's not the end of the world. It's a good kid, trying hard as hell.
Yeah.
That's most anybody can ask for you.
Mm-hmm. How does the kid feel?
I wanted to hear that. I wanted to hear that, not more. I'd like to have heard a lot more of that.
Yeah. Now, normally at this point in the session, I would go on. I'd overrun, but I won't because of our time limitation. But this is a golden moment where he's beginning to let somebody in and cry and feeling coming. There's somebody there. But for now, how do you feel about coming back next week and talking about it some more? Do you think it'd be okay to wait a couple days like that? Because I'd like to talk more with you about this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about our interview today?
I got a lot. I understand some things better, definitely.
Oh, good. you're a very good person. You really try. And I think you just need to take a little bit of what's being offered to you in from that grown-up version of yourself to the younger version. So you can feel this ache in a safe way. May not make sense, but we'll talk more, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so
Thank you both. That was impressive. Todd, you're amazing. That was it seems like it was getting at some genuine emotion in you, which is, yeah.
he moonlights at the Boxlight Theater.
No, I think you're tapping into some stuff. So I want to open it up. If anybody in the audience wants to submit a question or a comment, please do so, and we will kind of open it up for discussion. But the first, I wanted to know from you, Todd, what was your experience like of playing this person? Obviously, you're working with a person like this, and what was it like? What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was. I wanted to. So I've heard a lot. So when we try to get people to look at their images on the screen, they come up with dozens of different reasons. They say, what, this is my face, there's nothing there, it's nothing to talk about. They say, oh, no, you don't understand, doctor, I want technique.
Tools. Yeah, one tool.
Cool. So these are things that we hear, even when you can tell that underlying conflict is just right there, but the patient is often doesn't want to go there, especially a male, to go into a zone where they're going to cry. So they sort of skirt around it in various ways. And so that I was, trying to capture that.
Yes, that was very believable. Dusty, do you have any comments or questions as you were watching the interview?
Yeah, I thought in the beginning, Michael, you were getting a lot more information than we usually do, or at least that when we do our role plays. And I think at some point in the beginning, you were missing him a bit. I think he was needing some sort of feedback, I think, from you about, how he made you feel. And I was, yeah, because then when you started to, get into, maybe how tough it was for him, and you started, then he got a little bit more emotional,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, I look, he was very emotional from the beginning. He was in distress, miserable and suffering, and it was painful to be with. I think that what was painful by the end felt wonderful for me. Now, I don't think it felt as wonderful for him yet, but I felt much closer to him. I was going slower and trying to cover some of the bases, so it didn't look as much like a cowboy thing, and make it a little more digestible to people watching. But other people may have seen it that way too, which would be good for me to know, or they may have thought, you just were rushing right in without checking on this or that. It'd be interesting to hear what people say.
So I always feel more empathy to people who are in distress than I do to the more, I guess, what we'd call egocentric patients who come in and they don't have distress. I think our empathy is activated when, it's natural, and that's when we see someone in pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, when you have more egocentric patients who are externalizing and aren't emitting signs of being in pain or distress, how do you how do you do that empathic connection that you're doing
Well,
when people are in pain?
well, look, it's a little different because they're saying everything's fine, and I just have this problem. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm okay. You say so. So it's a little problem then. It's not a big problem. They say, no, it's a big problem. I didn't just come here because it's... So you get them to begin to see it as a bigger problem. And what's it like to have this bigger problem? What makes it bigger? How does a big problem feel versus a little? What makes it qualify as big? Just because you move them away from this everything's fine thing into they got a problem.
Yeah.
Just by asking them about this bigger problem. And there's a lot of things you can do, but
To undo the externalization.
yeah.
But the what seems so powerful, Michael, is the empathic connection.
Yeah. The
And
connection is everything. You have
so
to connect.
so that empathic connection
Mhm.
that you're establishing with the person, where the person knows you are with them,
Mhm.
present with them, engage with them.
Mhm.
Do you think that that is one of the core curative factors in
I
your
think it's your
approach?
connection with them and them learning to be connected to themselves.
That was the question I was trying to get at. But do you think your modeling connection helps them get to their connection to
I
themselves?
think it gets them to see that I feel some of these things and how I'm dealing with it. And I might give an example of how helpful it was to me.
Mhm.
Something happened, like I have my favorite Uncle Fred story that I tell all the time. How he
Mhm.
observed me being just badly treated, and everyone else was avoiding it because they didn't want to get into it with the person who was treating me this way, because
Mhm.
he made life hell for people. And he was kind of a stranger to the family, but he kind of said as an aside to me, "You've got it tough there with so and so," and I just about fell over. No one had ever said that, and I
Mhm.
felt like somebody was there.
Yeah.
So these small statements can go a long, long way. So small statements of you aching with, are you seeing that they're hurting? And Rusty was getting at that with that question. And I think so you do little things. You also try to sensitize them to what's going on. A lot of people feel nothing. They have no sense of their skin, no sense of their internal body. And as Kristen knows from the talk I gave to her group, I talked all about that constantly. I think I didn't talk about this part. I think it's better to talk about this part first because people see that it works and then they might want to learn those pieces. But then if you just describe those pieces, they don't have any, they need a skeleton to hang the meat on. So it's better to demonstrate the technique and then explain how these things come in. And there's all kinds of sensitization things you can do. Some of them seem kind of like meditative things, but they're really designed to increase the awareness of all the senses are bringing to you, so
Yes.
that you
And
become you and they begin to glow with all of this eventually.
well, that's one of the things whenever I watch you work, Michael, that you have incorporated so many different approaches, and the therapy is so layered. I kept wanting to stop and saying, boy, I hear the internal family systems guy there, and I hear that I was
Well, see,
just I
I'm
know that you're doing it.
I'm the cover child for your integrative therapy.
Yeah.
This is what you're always preaching.
You're the unified therapist, because it's all there, and it just comes out in such a interesting um, flowing fluid motion. It's wonderful.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Even though you're desperate at times, you're hurt with them, you may be exhausted because you tried so hard. I don't tire myself out so much anymore. But I have more fun now because I'm not pushing so hard. I let it happen more, and as a result, it's a joy.
Yes.
I mean, I feel actually energized
Yeah.
by the process.
So unfortunately, the time went very quickly. It's 8 o'clock. We're going to have to stop our formal part of the presentation. For those of you who want to stay around, and we're going to do a little wrap up, who can stay with us, please feel free to join and submit your questions or comments, and I'll ask them, and we'll do a little bit of debriefing and wrapping up. So thank you for attending. Those of you who have to take off, and we will hopefully see you next month for Bessel van der Kolk with Bessel.
Great. And thank you guys for helping me today.
Bye-bye.
It's a team effort.
So
Take care.
Thank you, Todd.